committees, the appointments. This evening, we have Miss, please bear with me, Adedayo Basuna was interviewed on January 19th for appointment to the Community Outreach Committee. Council concurred to appoint her to the committee as a member for a 2-year term. I would entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move for her appointment.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, please reply with an aye.
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 Opposed, the same favor. Hearing none, congratulations and welcome to the committee. I will now do the swearing in.
Thank you.
All right, and here we go. And I'd like to thank the city clerk for resending that to me again. I do appreciate it.
No problem.
And here we go. The constitutional oath of office. I state your name.
I, Adedayo Basuna,
Do swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do swear or affirm that I would support the Constitution of the United States
and that I will be faithful, bear true allegiance
that I will be faithful and bear
true allegiance
true allegiance
to the state of Maryland
to the state of Maryland
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment,
and that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully, without penalty, at least without partiality or prejudice, execute the office of regular or alternate member of the, and name the committee,
execute the office of the Outreach Committee
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
according to the Constitution and laws of the state.
Congratulations and welcome, and thank you for your service to the city.
Yay, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. At this time,
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
I believe Ms. Hillman has joined us. Ms. Hillman, are you in the meeting?
I am.
Okay.
Well, we will turn it over to Ms. Hillman for the Black History Month presentation.
Thank you. Now, so if you guys pardon me just a second, because I have to actually look at it. So I don't know if you guys will be able to still see me when I read it. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Okay.
So first of all, thank you guys for allowing me to present on behalf of the Diversity Committee. And so to honor Heritage Month and Black History Month, the Diversity Committee would like to acknowledge where we have been as a people and also acknowledge who we are becoming. Our story is as old as America herself, and it is woven into the very fabric of the cosmos and seated in the soil of the earth. While our shared story is complex and nuanced, each day is a chance for us to draw closer together as we write our story. We, the people who write our story, in order to form a more perfect union. That is our charge. While the history of Black people in America is one of nuance, it is a history that is shared with the population at large. We are aware of the treatment Black Americans have faced at the hands of society and the government. We are aware of the treatment Native Americans have faced at the hands of society and the government. We also know of the struggles of people who came from Europe who wanted religious freedom. Now, many listening to this speech may have their own opinions and views, but we create new ways to work with people who may disagree with us in the spirit of gaining understanding. For example, there are those who believe politics stopped working for them, and there are many who believe politics never worked for them. We are here at this time to welcome the diversity of appearance as well as opinion, where you will have a place to hear and to be heard. That is the beauty of writing our own story and the essence of Black History and Heritage Month. Many gifted, talented, and everyday people have paved the way for us and future generations, allowing a new story to be told. We honor them. Specifically, the state of Maryland gifted us with Benjamin Banneker, an astronomer, an almanac author, a surveyor knowledgeable of mathematics and natural history, a man who completed a wooden clock at the age of 21, having modeled it after a borrowed pocket watch. Maryland gifted us with Cab Calloway, a master of scat music and the first African-American musician to sell 1 million records from a single song and to have a nationally syndicated radio show. Maryland gifted us with Frederick Douglass, a former slave, an abolitionist from the Eastern Shore, social reformer, orator, writer, and statesman, a man known for his orations on the condition of the Black race and women's rights. Maryland gifted us with Thurgood Marshall, a lawyer and civil rights activist who served as Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, and who prior to taking the bench argued Brown versus Board of Education, landmark civil rights legislation in its day. Maryland gifted us with Harriet Tubman, a woman who escaped slavery and is believed to have made 19 missions to rescue at least 700 enslaved people as a part of the Underground Railroad and an activist for women's suffrage. Maryland gifted us with Billie Holiday, a talented jazz singer. And most recently, Maryland gifted us with Ari Lennox, a gifted singer who reminds us of the magical powers of shea butter, and so many more geniuses in their own right. The good news about this story is that it is still being written. It is based on who we are, what we have been through, and in order to form that more perfect union, constant work is required from all of us. We all have a charge. This story is being written by the girls and boys working to get the tools to show their genius. We honor you. It is being written by the young adults at historically Black colleges and universities who will be the first in their family to graduate college. We honor you. It is being written by the professionals and entrepreneurs serving as pillars in the community. We honor you. It is being written by the mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, and everyone doing their best to be their best. We honor you this day, each day. His story is her story, is our story. And together, we will write a great work.
Very good. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, folks. Now I'm trying to get back to there we go.
Hey, again, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we will move back to council announcements. Are there any council members who would like to make an announcement at this time?
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilwoman
Yes.
Gibson. I do have a few announcements. I want to give an update on the vaccine effort.
Okay, thank you. Go right ahead.
Thank you. So this evening, I attended a call with County Executive Alsel Brooks, Congressman Anthony Brown, county health officials, and other elected officials regarding updates on the county's vaccination effort. And I wanted to provide those to you. It was recognized that the state scheduling system was not a good system, especially for our seniors. So the county, because of the confusion with the state registration site, The county has moved registrations to the health department's electronic record system. They shared that all people on the pre-register list will get appointments within the next few weeks. They are still prioritizing people in 1A, 1B, and 1C. The pre-registration list has more than 125,000 people on the list. The county is expected to receive at least 4,200 doses per week for the next few weeks. To eliminate the confusion with scheduling second doses, they will be scheduling first and second doses at the same time. We are asking for your continued patience as the county relies on the state for vaccines. So if they do not have enough vaccines, they will have to cancel appointments. The county is currently vaccinating people at the following sites: Cheverly Department of Health, Sports and Learning Center, Southern Regional Technology and Recreation Complex, and after tomorrow, the Laurel Beltsville Community Center. And they are expecting to vaccinate up to 400 people beginning next week. Six Flags is a state site with limited vaccines for our county residents. We're also vaccinating people at churches, grocery stores, drugstores, opening up as well to vaccinate people. This is a very challenging time for all of us, so please know that we are all here to help. We will have updated information on the city website and in the COVID update emails that we send out every day. So thank you. If you have any questions, please reach out to us.
Thank you, Councilmember Harrison. Any other announcements by any other council members at this time? Hearing none, we will move on to the city manager's report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and
Good evening.
the residents in Bowie. Currently, the city staff is just completed the initial review of the staff budget request and desires, and today, as a matter of fact, we for the next 30 days or so, Finance Department is going to be compiling all the data, making the calculations with the intent to present city manager's budget, proposed budget to you all on April 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. At this time, I would like to move on to the consent agenda, and I will entertain a motion at this time.
I move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. At this time, all in favor, please respond with an aye.
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 Opposed, the same favor. Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you. We will now move on to old business. We will now turn it over to the city staff for the city development review policies.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Joe Minert, the Planning Director, and wanted to say to you tonight that we are finished with the updates to the development review policies that you reviewed at your February 1st public hearing, and you directed staff to make several additional changes in addition to the things that we've already revised. And so what you have before you tonight is a draft that is titled the February 1st City Council Revisions Draft. And I believe it does include all of the inputs that we've received from council. There are a lot of highlights of this particular update to our policies, and I'd like to just run through a list of some of them. First, you strengthened the review process by including city departments and committees. You've changed the words should to shall throughout the document. That was a change that council directed on February 1st. You've limited the higher densities to just the Bowie local center. Eliminated the Main Street boundary expansion, which was previously in the document. Updated the Bowie racetrack policy to specify recreation and open space uses. Preserve the character of existing shopping centers, working through the upcoming master plan. We also added a smart technology policy as recommended by the Information Technology Committee. Also, there was a new policy that council directed for the Popes Creek rail line. We've expanded some other transportation policies this time around, including more definition on trail projects and transit policy. We've added a climate change reference to the environmental chapter. We've also included a no net loss forest conservation policy. And also we defined better the affordable housing policy and actually focused that policy on the local center. So these are some of the highlights of this document. I believe that it's ready for your approval tonight. It has included all the changes that council recommended. And with that, staff would recommend your approval of the document and as well the letter that we attached to the Maryland State Highway Administration regarding Bowie Main Street. And that concludes the staff presentation.
Hey, thank you so much, Mr. Minor. I will open it up to council members if they have any questions they would like to direct towards Mr. Minor at this time. Hearing none. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I apologize. This is Councilman Esteve.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm surprised no one else has questions, but I'll just say, Joe, thank you so much for all the work that you've done on this. I know that we sent you back to the workshop a couple of times to implement some more changes based on the feedback we gave you. But I just want to say thank you so much for your work on this. The feedback that I've gotten from residents who've had a chance to look through the draft documents has been pretty consistent, which is that they're very happy that we're moving our policies and guidelines much closer to, I think, where most residents are, especially on the issue of development. We're taking into consideration a lot of feedback the whole city council's gotten in the last several years. And so I'm really grateful to you for your work on this and very happy that we're going to be adopting some guidelines and policies that are much, much more in line with, I think, where residents are on some of these questions. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Dufour-Wolfley.
It's not so much a question, but I also want to reiterate what Councilman Esteve said, and that's expression of gratitude for the work that's gone into this. So thank you very much to you and to your team as well. Greatly appreciate it. I know I too have received significant feedback on the community, and this is a significant stride forward in conforming to the wishes of the community. So thank you very much. Look forward for us passing this forward and on an ongoing basis as we shift our direction. So this is really nice. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And Mr. Minor, I think to you and the staff and all of you, I think we all echo. We know this has been an iterative process, and you've really done a good job of including those changes that we've made in the whole bit. So we do want to thank you so very much for the time and effort that you have put into this.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Harrison?
Are you ready for a motion?
I'll entertain the motion.
Okay. I move that the council accept the city development review policies as written.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion at this time? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor, respond with an aye.
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 Any opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you again, Joe.
Thank you very much, council.
Thank you.
All right, we will now move on to the proposed communications policy regarding the virtual meetings. And I think we will open it. City staff, is there any comments
Mr. Mayor,
to make at this time?
Sure thing, Mr. Mayor. We'll hand off. This is as you all know, the city's communications plan is what we call a standard operating procedure for the city and staff and how we communicate with the residents and all parties. And Una Cooper is our in charge of that office, and she's going to provide a briefing on this particular update. Una?
Thank you, Mr. Lott. Good evening, council and members of the
Good evening.
public. For the record, I'm Una Cooper, Communications Director for the City of Bowie. I'm here this evening to talk about virtual meetings. Virtual meetings have become a way of life for most of us, and even the word virtual has come to mean a lot of different things, but gatherings that can take place safely and remotely in our homes or in our offices, instead of in conference rooms, council chambers, or places like that we used to gather in the days before COVID. Specifically tonight, I'm going to talk to you about a policy we have developed to address how virtual meetings are being handled, city meetings, and to establish a process for requesting those meetings, scheduling them, and managing different kinds of meetings. So we're talking about process and not actually, in most cases, about the content of the meeting. And this policy was first discussed several months ago, in the early fall, I believe. It will become we have a communications plan that kind of directs everything to do with our outreach and communications with the public and other residents and other stakeholders. This policy will become another annex to the city communications policy that was put into effect in 2017. So, as I said, virtual meetings have become a way of life for all of us. And I suspect that when the pandemic is over, and it will end sometime, that even when we can gather safely again, that virtual meetings will continue to be held. And there's there's value in face-to-face conversation. You can look someone in the eye, you can shake their hand, you can get to know them, you can instill confidence, not only by your words, but by your gestures. But there's also great convenience in virtual meetings. We're seeing engagement from people that perhaps couldn't come to a meeting because they had kids at home doing homework, or they didn't have a babysitter, or they don't have to deal with traffic, or they can do multiple things at one time. So there are a great deal of value in it. And we have used these virtual meetings throughout the pandemic on a variety of things. We did a town hall meeting on policing. We've done ones on the pandemic itself, the Sears property, the Jesuit property, and we did a Code 101 instructional kind of webinar. And people really want to be involved and have discussions, and we should continue to do everything we can to encourage that through virtual meetings. So this is a policy for the pandemic, but it can also become a framework for what comes after this. So as far as the purpose of this, as I said, it's a framework, and the idea is to equitably allocate city resources for virtual meetings. And city resources are involved in virtual meetings, not only in the software that we use, which in most cases is Zoom, the computers, and staff resources that are used to manage the meetings, and in some instances to broadcast them as well. And so this policy will set realistic expectations about how we can support these meetings. And the policy lays out before you 5 different kinds of scenarios for the meetings, for different kinds of meetings. Ones that are required, for example, by the development review guidelines, that we would need to have a stakeholders meeting. That would be one initiated by staff and part of an existing process that already is laid out. And then there's other ones. A second scenario would be a meeting that was requested by an individual council member regarding a matter related to city business. And that might, an example that comes to mind there is a meeting that was requested and that was held on the Sears property. It was a single council member requested it, brought it to the council's attention. There was a consensus that it was a good idea, and the meeting was held virtually, and there was a very good amount of participation. And a third scenario would be when there is an individual council member that wants to work with their constituents, provide them an update, or focus on a particular subject, maybe relevant to one district. Councilman Esteve had a District 1 Old Town Bowie meeting a few months ago that would be an example of that. The fourth scenario has to do with when city committees are involved in scheduling meetings. Next week, I'll do a little plug here for the Diversity Committee and the Outreach Committee. They're working together on a series called Bowie Speaks, and it's a discussion about racial justice. So this is an example of a committee-initiated kind of meeting where they're bringing a conversation to the public, and that involves a variety of resources and city staff. And then the final scenario, so to speak, is requested by a member of the community. And in those cases, the community member, what we're proposing is they would bring the request to the city clerk, who would assign it to a staff liaison to a committee. So we would sort of refer those through a committee process. It would start out with a city liaison who would review it, look and see if it matches up to something that's already being done. Is there time to do it? Are there the resources to do it? Then they would bring it to the city committee, who would decide whether or not it was something they wanted to take on, and then they would become a co-sponsor of the event. So they sort of act as the community review of a community meeting. So there's different kind of, as I said, different scenarios and sort of different ways each one would be handled. But for all of them, the IT committee would take the lead in terms of managing the technology, setting up the Zoom conferences, and managing the actual meeting. They participate in the meetings. They would limit the discussion through the question and answer function for security. The meeting should have an agenda, and those kind of meetings, or actually any of these meetings, are subject to the Open Meetings Act, and politicking and or campaigning of any kind would not be permitted on them. So you have the policy before you, and you can see it for each of the scenarios how what the council's role would be, who would actually take the lead on doing the organizing, how we would publicize it. And I think the key point probably is how many that there would be for in any given year. And so when it comes to, well, actually, let me step back for 1 second and just say that we're talking about a city resource here, so we want to make sure that what we're doing is managing the city resource, and so it's really important to have staff involvement in every step of the way on whatever kind of meeting it is. So for the scenario, the first scenario, those come up, a developer brings a project to the city, then the development review process kicks in, and so those are sort of an example of as needed.
Una, we lost your sound. I think your mic is off.
I can hear her.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Yeah, well, I haven't lost you.
We can hear you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so only Byron lost me, it sounds like then. Okay, so anyway, the first kind of meeting, those would be sort of as needed. The same with ones that, the second scenario where an individual council member brings it to the full council and council endorses that, those would be as needed and it would relate to city business. The third scenario, the districts, so each of you, the 7 of you, so it's not only districts, so there's 7 council members, each of you would have 4 meetings a year in this scenario, that up to 4 meetings a year that you could schedule, and that would be supported by city staff. It could be for information sharing, gathering input, but the caveat there would be that would have to be related to city business or matters that will come before the council. And then the committee ones, we have 16 committees, and we're proposing 4 committee meetings per year. Now we know that it's probably, I can't ever think of the IT committee having a public meeting. Not that they couldn't, but that we know that even though there's 16 committees, probably we're not talking about 64 meetings. We're probably talking more in the neighborhood of 13 or 14 committees that could possibly have up to 4 meetings a year. And then the final scenario in that one, it would be, since it would go through a committee process, each committee would be allotted one of those a year. So it's still, we're talking about a lot of different meetings, and each one of those meetings, as I said, creates some demand on staff. Depending on what kind of meeting it is, the IT department spends approximately 4 hours. If it's broadcast, my folks get involved for a couple hours in working on the video before and after. And then depending on what the topic is, for example, we did some this past summer that youth services were involved in, that required more involvement and time on their part. So it varies, minimum 4 to 6 hours of city staff time for each Zoom meeting or each virtual meeting that we have. And then the final thing that, IT will use Zoom for a majority of their meetings, as they are now for these public, large style meetings. We're using Microsoft Teams for things like this, and also for committee meetings and internal meetings. Council members also have the ability to set up any meetings that they wish to in lieu of a face-to-face meeting using Teams at any time. So these meetings that we're talking about here in the 5 different scenarios would take place mostly on would take place on Zoom, but there would be that additional option for council members to hold their own personal meetings, as they can now, with Teams. So I think I will stop there and entertain any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Rona, at this time, any council members with questions at this point?
Hey, Mr. Mayor, it's me, Roxy.
Hi, council member, go right ahead.
Council member, hello.
Hi, Una, how are you? So good to see you.
Thank you.
First off, really great job on this. I really, really love how thoughtful this was, and how clearly it was articulated and laid out, and I know how much work went into this, so thank you so much for your hard work on this. Very much so a fan. The only question that I have is around the 4 meeting rule, and the only reason why I'm kind of concerned about that is there are a number of things that may come out throughout the year, because we all know we have 365 days in a year, and the job of a council member never stops, even though it's labeled as part-time. My question is around what happens when there are issues that come up that, you know, when we've reached our 4, because I mean, in an ideal world, like somebody like me, I don't know about my other colleagues, but somebody like me would love to have just a normal town hall with my constituents every quarter, I guess you would say every quarter, to really see what's top of mind for people and really be able to update everyone on and summarize, you know, kind of some of the things that we've gone over in our council hearings for those who are not able to always tune in. And that I could see that being a really great forum. But if I'm doing a meeting with constituents quarterly, and let's say an issue pops up with in my district that would look like a South Lake, or like a big issue right now is kind of what's going on with Jennings Mill Drive and things like that. I think that the 4 is a little bit restricting, and I don't ever want to be caught in a situation where I have to tell constituents like, you know, okay, well, let me try to organize my own meeting and try to pay somebody else outside of my pocket to do that, or whatever that looks like, because we have a limit of 4 and I did that by informing you through my town halls. So I think that for me, I would love to see that number kind of be abolished in terms of normal council members and us requesting meetings, because I think that we have to remain agile and fluid because different things come up at different times. It just depends on what's going on that year. And it's very tough to put a limit on interacting with our constituents in that way. So that's the only thing that I would call out. But everything else I think looks great.
What I would say about that, again, is we're talking about managing resources. And I appreciate, and, you know, believe me, I am all about communications and outreach. But I think that second scenario where it's not that you couldn't have any more meetings, it would just take some buy-in from your colleagues on the council in order to use city resources in that way, the way it's written.
Yeah, I would perhaps, I think, and it's not, by no means does that mean I wouldn't want to include my council members. I think that they should even be, you know, CC'd when maybe, let's say, a request is being scheduled or a request is being requested or something like that. I do think, I do worry about the time constraints with that, because when you limit it to 4, and I understand the idea around managing city resources, and of course this is hypothetical, not saying that this is exactly what would happen, but I do fear that when you add such guardrails around that, and let's say something comes up and I'm telling a constituency, well, you know, I need to put this on an agenda, I need to get, you know, the council buy-in, and then I'll get back to you on whether I can have this town hall. I just think that inhibits us from being able to do our job in a particular way, which we were elected to do. So I don't necessarily think that's a good idea, in my opinion. Now, of course, this is all hypothetical, and I'm not saying that, you know, there could be years where they're very quiet and we don't need to have these public types of forum meetings as often, but I fear for the occurrence where something does happen or something is a hot topic and we do need to organize very quickly. I think adding that to a council hearing and trying to get a vote on it, it just cuts into time, and now you're looking at a 3-week turnaround versus something that should be maybe 5 or 6 day turnaround. So that's kind of where my concern is a little bit there. So I perhaps wouldn't be for that 4 number, me personally. So that's me making that public. I don't agree with that 4 number, but and I'm not saying that there should be 10 or 15. I just think that it should be left open for the possibility that things will happen and things may arise, and we may need to act quickly in that way to be able to best communicate with our constituents.
Okay, thank you.
And Una, and to that point, what is the fiscal impact of these policies? You know, is there cost related, or is there a budget impact?
Well, being very, very, very conservative on the numbers, if we say 4 to 6 hours for IT and 3 to 5 for communications, if it's a live broadcast meeting, we're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 to $500 per meeting. Just in terms of staff time, and I just used a very low ballpark hourly rate of $30 an hour for that. But you know, the Zoom account, we pay for that, but that's a one-time charge for the year. So each one of these incremental meetings is really only the cost is in staff time, and what else isn't getting done because they're focusing on that. Between March and November, and you know, they were not normal times at all in so many ways, but there were 50 meetings, virtual meetings, that our IT department managed. So the person who managed most of those meetings was not doing a lot of other things that he would normally do for the IT department because he was working on those.
So when you came up with the 4, with the number of the meetings per council member of 4, what were your consideration items for that number?
It was, as Council Member Ndebumadu referenced, I was thinking of quarterly meetings for each council member.
Okay.
And then, as again, the scenario 1 and 2, there's the option for a whole lot of other meetings going on as well with that.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And I thought everything was very well laid out, so I appreciate your work on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council members?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I could jump in real quick. Hi, Una. Thank you so much for the. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much, Una, for the presentation tonight. I really appreciate this. I'll just say from past experience, let's pretend these policies weren't applying to virtual meetings, but were applying to regular in-person events. This would be probably, I'm going to guess, one of the more accessible policies for residents and individual council members and committee members to be able to organize events. I did a lot of in-person events prior to the pandemic related to my council job. Most of the time I wasn't using any staff resources, but 4 meetings a year with staff resources would have been, even by my standards, a lot. As far as I understand, Una, for the 4 number, that's just, if say an individual council member wants to put on an event in excess of the 4 they get a year, all they need to do is to get a majority of the council to approve an event, and the whole council could put on an event. Is that not correct?
That is the intention of what was written, yes.
Gotcha. So that's just for Mike Estev saying, hey, Una, I need you and Todd to put on another thing for me this year. And if we want to up that number to 6 or something else, I'd be fine with that. But I just for clarification, I can't see a scenario where an individual council member is going to be doing a lot more events by themselves without anyone else involved in any way. A lot of governments do not hand over staff resources or time to the public this readily. The fact that we are not only doing that, but we're actually formalizing that process where any member of the public can request City of Bowie resources to do events is really great. And I like the way that this policy is designed, where it just creates a little bit of consistency and sets up clear rules for everyone. That you can absolutely put on events with the city on top of the many events we already put on, but there's just a little bit more of a formal process to it. That's not hard. It's not designed to make it impossible to put on events. This is all very navigable. But I like the idea overall. If people want to change the cap from 4 to 6 or another number, I'd be fine with that. But just speaking from experience, I can't see a scenario where people are going to be doing a whole lot more events. And if they are, they just need to get 3 other living council members to agree, and it's done. So anyway, I appreciate the time and the thought that went into this. Thank you, Una.
You're welcome.
Hey,
Mr.
thank
Mayor?
you, Councilman. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor?
Because I have, go right ahead, please.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you, Una, for time and effort spent on this, and I want to thank all of the staff that's engaged in the work of putting these events through seamlessly. I know it's difficult in today's time with all the pressures and the absence of community in physical presence, but we are a community virtually. And so all of your work on this is greatly appreciated, so thank you. I do think the policy is put together nicely, so thank you very much. I too feel that we're probably have ample with 4. I suspect that the bigger concern is runaway use of staff time more than anything. And I think that in circumstances where somebody runs out, I think I'm certainly willing to be the affirmative vote on anybody who needs an extra meeting here or there. I don't have a problem with that. But I do think it helps with planning for staffing and allow us to make use of the resources we have. So I want to say thank you to staff for all the excellent work that's been done on this. And even as we're here this evening, this is no small effort for everybody involved. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions from any other council members? comments? At this time, I would like to ask, because one of the things I thought I did hear from the councilwoman is the question of what if we get into a situation where one is used, say the 4, but then an emergency comes up, something short term, because I think what I'm hearing is the question is we may need to do something in between council meetings. Because if something comes up, for example, we know we only have one council meeting, for example, in December.
Well, Mr. Mayor, let me.
If something comes up,
Why can't we
after
do it,
that,
Council?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I can help out on that one.
I'm sorry. Let me.
Yeah, I'm ready. To answer your question, if by chance somebody needs a meeting to schedule a virtual meeting in between council meetings, then you all have a council poll procedure that exists. That would suffice, and all we have to do is get the question
And
to
that's
the.
what I was getting to. Would that? I think that would resolve that. Councilwoman, would that resolve it for you? That we'd be able to just take a poll to be able to address that if we try to cap a number or put a number in there just as a placeholder? Would that work for you?
I think that's a good compromise. For me, look, we all have different ways in how we govern. Some council members will not use for and do not meet with their constituents that often. They have newsletters, they communicate written word. Some council members do want to meet with their constituents quarterly, like myself. And if I'm looking at myself wholeheartedly in the way that I want to govern for my community, I think placing a cap on that and saying like, oh, I can only use 4, and then I now need to use my financial resources as a private person in terms of, my day job at Microsoft, to use that money to now spend to procure outsourced resources to communicate with my community. I don't necessarily think that's fully fair. So I just think there's a difference in how we all govern, and I don't want to run into a situation where, like I said, something comes up in my community and I need to organize a town hall like we had the Hall Station annexation. If I'm thinking about the way that I choose to govern, which is increasing my communication with my community to make sure that I'm over communicating and I'm having town halls every quarter, that already puts me at a max of 4. So if Hall Station were to come up, I would now need to put that on a council hearing. And I understand that, a way to go around that would be to put that on a council hearing and then, get the consent, which other people may view that as fairly quick. But for me, I come from a different background. I'm about efficiency and quickness. So whereas local government traditionally moves at a slower speed, I don't adopt, that's not my mentality. So I don't want my constituents to ever have to wait in any moment for me to have to wait 2 weeks to put something on a council hearing, or for me to have to get in contact with city staff, because there are often scenarios where not all of us are treated equitably. So I don't want my constituents to bear the burden for that wait and that downtime just because of a certain process that we could have discussed or alleviated today. So I would be more comfortable with the 6 number. That's not saying that I would use all of those. Like, this is just, of course, this is hypothetical, but I also am a believer of being proactive instead of reactive. So I would prefer to be more comfortable with the 6 number or something like that, to at least leave that flexibility and that room. However, if my colleagues choose to govern a different type of way and they don't necessarily agree with having a 6 number, that's okay too. And I'll just continue to use my own money to, find ways to communicate with my constituents.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And I think the city manager actually went to where I was going, and thank you for that. And that is, in case of where we need to turn something around very quickly, where we just be able to utilize a poll within the council, so we don't have to wait the time, because I really do understand your concern there, that we don't have to wait for another council meeting to bring it before the council. So I think that'll be good. I would ask and get to see, I heard you mention a 6 number. I know Council Member Stev mentioned the 6 number. I'm curious as to if that will cause any major issues if we just raise that to 6 at this time.
Mr. Mayor,
with the chance of, if we need a poll, would it have such a significant impact? I know we're trying to regulate our resources. Uno, your thoughts on that, and then I'll go back to the other council members to get their feel.
So incrementally, if we're talking 2 more times 7, that's 14 more meetings that the IT department would be setting up. So we're talking 4 to 6 hours. So there is an impact on it. If that's the direction council chooses to go, that's fine. The one thing that I think we would need to change under scenario number 2, right now it says it needs to be approved at a public meeting of the council. We would have to change that to say public meeting or council poll if we were going to go through that exception process.
Mr. Mayor.
But it's not just 2 more meetings. It would be 2 times 7 potentially.
Mr. Mayor, this is
Mayor, if I could just add just one more thing, and then I will likely probably make a motion to increase the number, and if it, and see where that goes. I just wanted to add context for a lot of the residents that are watching, just so this kind of paints a better picture, and then we can move on from this topic. In the document, if you look at the breakdown of the document, it says that we have 2 technologies. That's Teams and that's Zoom. So we are also making the choice to spend on a duplicate service. So let's put that first. After acknowledging that we are spending on a duplicate services, because essentially these services all do the same thing. After acknowledging that, we are also making the intentional choice to have these mitigation processes around, the way that we govern these services. So essentially, if we were to do public meetings, like let's say I was to organize a meeting with District 4 to talk about road infrastructure, or some of the, like let's say if I had a meeting with Secretary Slater coming up and I wanted to get input from District 4 to see how they felt or what were their priorities or concerns, so I can make sure that I'm well equipped for my meeting or prepared or whatever that looks like. Essentially, I could, the way the technology is designed, I could schedule all of those things myself. Now, I understand that that's making another investment to upskill council members and teach them how to use these technologies so that we don't necessarily need to choose to use city staff resources in this way. But I just want to point out, we're making a choice to leverage city staff resources in the sense, and when I say resources, I'm talking about physical man hours. We're making that choice. I'm not saying that choice is right or wrong. It's just a way of governing and a way of mitigating processes, which is fine if that's the choice that we're making. But I just want to point that out, because what I'm trying to draw a parallel to is we're not choosing to just say, okay, we want to add 14 meetings and we want to choose to spend X amount of dollars and take away from our budget to allocate that, because we could easily make these technologies accessible to council members and council members could just schedule it themselves. Now, because we are trying to mitigate possible risk and govern what a council member might say or might not say, or the way that the processes wants to be set up in terms of how you broadcast it out to the public and things of that sort, we're choosing to add all these extra layers, and we're choosing to allocate all these man hours, and we're choosing to spend money on that. So I just want to make sure that we're making that choice to do that. It doesn't have to be that way, but I understand this is also the way that local government works. That's not saying that we couldn't innovate and do things differently, but this is a choice that we're making. So I just want to make that clear in terms of my explanation and my understanding, because I do work in this space. Like, this is what I do for a living and a day job, and collaboration technologies is what I specialize in. So I just want to put that out there. With that being said, if there are no other council members that have any questions, Mr. Mayor, if you're comfortable and you are comfortable entertaining a motion, I would like to make a motion to
I got something to say.
Mr. Mayor,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Mayor, excuse me, just,
Yes.
if I may, before we get to the,
Is that before Wolfie? Oh.
please.
Would you?
Yeah, if I could, I'd
Mr.
like to
Mayor,
hear from.
should I just hold on before, do you want to speak? Because I wasn't done. So do you want to speak and I can go after you?
That's fine. I thought you were going to make a motion. I wanted to speak before you went through it.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to get insight onto the issue from city manager and staff. My feeling is, it's the way I see it, and maybe I'm seeing it simply, is that we have a limited resource to that we have to plan around. We do have alternate methods for different various ways of viewing it, whether it's with Zoom or with Teams. The Zoom version seems to be the burdensome part. Teams would allow us to do it on our own in circumstances where that's warranted. And presumably, Mr. City Manager, can you kind of highlight a little bit more on the distinction, please?
Yes, sir. The problem with the reason we placed the limit of 4 is because I think when Una mentioned earlier, all the different people who could actually use the service. If by chance everybody who's eligible to use the service, the best that we can manage it is using that 4 number. If we raise that number up to 6 for everybody involved, considering the assets that we have, and this is not an assigned mission. This is a mission that we morphed into with COVID-19. This could be something that's not manageable, and we would have to be able to say to somebody, well, we can do yours, but not yours. But right now, we think we can manage all parties involved with this particular number. And we're prepared to react quickly if somebody, by chance, has an emergency situation and get all the approvals needed within a matter of hours. And of course, then we would have to juggle our assets because somebody might get bumped out, but that would require coordination. This is, so adding, increasing the capacity, the number to 6 is not necessarily in line with our capacity to get the job done. But if it happens, we'll try. But we may need more people and more assets to do the job if we increase this particular issue. Thank you.
Would it be helpful, Mr. City Manager, would it be helpful if we went forward with what we're looking at right now for, say, 6 months or so, find out how we're utilizing the meeting count, and if there's a need, we can adjust up or rearrange. Obviously, the emergency situation, you could have 4 of them in the first 6 months. That would give you an indication.
Right.
And we could add more as we move along here if we give ourselves a trial period to ensure that if you need more resources, we'll have to get additional staffing for that to ensure that the rest of the things are accomplished that we need the IT folks doing.
A trial period would be perfect, sir. With 2 months, 4 months, 6 months would be perfect to see what happens. We believe that the plan that's proposed will work, and we are prepared to deal with contingency situations. And if there is a need to raise the number, then we're willing to do so, and then figure out a way to get more assets put in that direction, even if we need to add FTEs, in the middle of the year. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilman DeFore, are you finished? And I'll make a comment if I can.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Did you say something, Councilman?
No, just thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. What I was hearing is that potentially what we can do is still, I would like Una, if we could, and I'm talking to our council member, put in that we could do it by poll if there was an emergency and not just in front of a council meeting, if that came up. And I think Councilman DeFore and the city manager, I think maybe putting a trial period on the number we have right now, from my perspective, would work. I would like to hear from the other council members if they have a different view or think differently from that. I think we would like to hear that at this time before we make the motion, which I'll go to Roxy to do. Any other discussion? Anybody, any thoughts on that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I agree that we move forward with the 4 and with the 6-month period, time period to see how that works. And after 6 months, we can do an assessment. And if we need to increase it, we can. So I agree with that.
And I would like to, just because of emergency or just in case, include from the what we're doing now, the language that we talked about and putting that,
the council
that we can do a council poll.
Totally agree.
If we need to, and not have to come before necessarily before the meeting.
Right. Yep.
Okay. Council Member Ndebumadu, did you have any other comments or thoughts at this point?
No, No, I think that's a fair compromise. As long as we are able to do, as long as we can change the language to include in there that in extreme circumstances or situations that we can have a council poll done, and that, you know, council members will be able to respond within an adequate time frame. I think that's a fair compromise.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I'm happy, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to adopt, let me just pull this up, to adopt the city's virtual meetings policy with the change that we're just gonna, for the individual council member meetings, we would allow council members to do a poll in the event that they've reached the 4 maximum threshold.
And we will be doing a 6-month.
Oh, yes, and a 6-month, along with the 6-month trial on the policy.
Yes. I didn't mean to jump into your.
No, thank you. I totally forgot that. So thank you. I appreciate it.
But making sure
Okay.
I'm sorry, the 6 months would only apply to that particular piece in the policy, correct? Just asking.
Yeah, correct.
Got it. Okay. So I second.
Yes. Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Any further discussion at this time?
Quick question on the motion, Mr. Mayor. I apologize. Is the city attorney on by any chance?
I thought I saw her, yes.
Alyssa, are you on?
I'm here.
Hi, Madam City Attorney. Quick question for you, and I apologize for belaboring this. I seem to remember a recent conversation about council polls as it related to the open meetings rules that we have to abide by. Do you have any feedback on that? Or are we able to use polls for things over email? When can we use them? When can't we use them? I just want to make sure we're not running afoul of the many state laws that we can't run afoul of.
So I would say this: you can use council polls for to schedule things, to get consensus on a matter like this, where you want to allow an extra meeting or two. You can't really use them to discuss substantive matters of city business. You can't evade the Open Meetings Act, but the Open Meetings Act doesn't apply to administrative functions.
Correct.
So this would fall within that exception to the application of the act.
Perfect. That addresses it entirely. Thank you so much, Alyssa. I'm sorry, Madam City Attorney.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All
Aye.
in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, same pleasure. Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you all so very much. All right.
Thanks, city staff. Thanks, Una.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All right, we will now be moving into the new business, urban centricity. Will be giving a present to council information on their housing and counseling programs for low to moderate income individuals and families. Do we have someone on to do the presentation?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Good evening.
Okay. I would just ask, we're running a little behind, and I know you have a very strong, great presentation, but I would ask that you understand that as we go through it, that we don't want to lose people in the process as it's getting a little later in the meeting. So please go right ahead.
Understood. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members.
Good evening.
My name is John Seard. I am the president and CEO of Urban Centricity. I have members of my team here. We're glad to be here. Apologize for our last meeting, the technology deficiencies. I am going to have one of my people on my team, Simone Hayes, introduce or walk us through the presentation and make myself available for any questions and anybody else on the team at that time.
Hey, and thank you for being here this evening. Please go right ahead.
Simone.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And good evening to all of you, and thank you so much for having us. I am doing my best to get us set up here with sharing. So let me see how I can fare here. Actually, John, if you don't mind, if you could pull up the presentation as well. I think that my Teams is not connecting to my ability to screen share for some reason.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we are Urban Centricity. My name is Simone Marshall Hayes. I'm an attorney and a board member of Urban Centricity, and it is really a pleasure to speak with you all this evening about this initiative that truly, I believe, will be such an asset to the city of Bowie and to its residents. And so, yeah, let's just jump right in. You know, our goal is to work to bridge the wealth gap together. And a quote that we have found a lot of appreciation for is that change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek, and that is by, obviously, President Barack Obama. Our mission in Urban Centricity is to take action by developing social and economic assets of families and their communities working to stimulate growth and prosperity through achieving wealth equality by empowering community stakeholders to sow prosperity through focusing solely on closing the wealth gap. So how did we develop our name? As you can tell, it is centered on the word centricity, which is designed to, you know, centralize and to indicate some sort of pillar rock. And so that is how we view ourselves in this conversation of home ownership, housing, entrepreneurship and business, and financial counseling. We are a nonprofit, a 501c3, Bowie based, and we're created to serve historically underserved communities that are struggling with housing, that are struggling with access to financial counseling, and to encourage financial literacy and to offer those financial services. Okay, so the home ownership portion of our program is offered in a myriad of ways. We have educational classes where individuals can receive education and guidance on the subject of home ownership. We have training programs which do a similar thing, but they offer more of a hands-on experience. Business support and services, of course, and then other tools that will help individuals to grasp the concepts and to be able to move forward in their education and pursuit of homeownership and financial literacy. So we are a NID affiliated program. We are a nonprofit that is affiliated with the NID, which is the largest African-American HUD-approved counseling and education service in the nation. And we're so proud of that. Through them, we get to partner and we get to take advantage of all sorts of affiliate relationships that we can then provide for our clients to allow them the best access possible. These are just a couple of our industry affiliations. As you can see, HUD is in the lower left-hand corner, Hope Now, eHome America, like I mentioned, NID, which is HUD affiliated as well, and Home Ownership Done Right. Okay, so our government sponsors are, like I mentioned before, HUD and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mae. And so by partnering with these organizations, with these government sponsors, we are able to offer that engagement for our clients. And then we have our private industry sponsors. These are companies that servicers that our clients would be able to take advantage of. The very best of the best of private sector partners. Bank of America, Chase, Citi. I'm sure many of you recognize maybe all of the names on this list: Wells Fargo, SunTrust, the National Association of Realtors. And so these are just a couple of the private sector industry partners that we offer to our clients in order to secure lending and services. Okay. So in terms of home ownership and housing, these are some of the topics that we cover, and you'll see these kind of appear throughout the rest of the presentation as well. We talk about home buying, we talk about foreclosure prevention, which, as you know, is increasingly important during this time. Many people are facing, because of the pandemic, because of job loss, they're in need of that mitigation, that foreclosure mitigation, non-delinquency post-purchase, financial management, rental and tenant education, homelessness assistance, and even business back office support for those who are trying to become entrepreneurs. Maybe they've lost their jobs, maybe they're wanting to endeavor in something new. We even offer those types of services as well. So here's one area that we have identified. Veterans and there's an epidemic of veterans being homeless in our nation. We all see it. We all know that it is true. And so we've chosen to kind of drill down into this particular demographic to better demonstrate the types of ways that we can connect with the community. I say that we drill down into this to make sure that you understand that this is not just for veterans. This is for any member of our community that is in need. But this shows just the way that we think about connecting in the community. So we would go to VA programs, public assistant benefit offices, churches, temples, and mosques where those veterans might be, detox centers, police stations that might be aware of where there might be a concentration of individuals, drop-in centers, hot meal programs, and food shelves. Basically anywhere where we can find individuals who are wanting and needing this help and maybe have reached out to individuals that couldn't or organizations that couldn't quite help them and meet their need in terms of finding housing. Of course, we're not limited to just the individuals who are connecting directly with organizations, because we recognize that there are a wealth of individuals who are on their own and who have not yet sought help, that maybe they don't know where to go. And so we are going to try to connect with them as well. Underpasses, under bridges, abandoned buildings, parking lots where a multitude of homeless individuals might be, might even sleep in their car, and stand down events. Okay. So some of the training that we would provide for individuals who are wanting to take advantage of urban centricity, who are benefited by this service, is we would offer courses in over 50 different topics. We try to be as comprehensive as possible so that individuals are not caught lacking in any part of this process. We want them to feel fully comfortable, fully equipped, and we provide them even with counselors and expertise in these areas. So we have everything from loan servicing, housing counseling, credit counseling, home ownership education, foreclosure intervention. Obviously, the list goes on. This is just an example of how our resources could be allocated for various subject matters. So, for example, with the home equity conversion mortgage, we are able to offer them free webinars on from HUD, right? But then we're also able to offer them forums and colleagues, and ask the expert. On the other hand, we are able to offer them sort of an interactive counselor experience. These are the various kinds of trainings that we would offer. They're pretty self-explanatory, so I won't belabor the point. In-person, e-learning, e-classroom express, and then virtual classroom. The most interactive are the virtual classroom and in-person classroom. E-learning and e-classroom express offer module-based learning where individuals can go and independently study. So what do we cover? I discussed a lot of this earlier. We focus on home ownership. We also discuss budgeting, allowing people to allocate their resources in a way that will allow them to be homeowners, that will allow them to invest in their futures. And we also offer that foreclosure prevention and early delinquency intervention, which is so important. We offer home maintenance advice and counseling, fair housing counseling, and we also advise on predatory lending, which we know was such a big issue in previous recessions. So community land trusts, let's delve into what a community land trust is. So community land trusts, they develop and rural and urban agriculture projects, commercial spaces to serve and local communities, and affordable, and they provide affordable rental and cooperative housing projects. The primary goal of community land trusts is to provide consistently affordable housing. So affordable housing that will never stop being affordable housing, essentially. And you can kind of see the process here. There's a need in the community. Maybe there's a some sort of vacant building that exists that the city owns. So what would happen is that a community land trust and a trusted nonprofit would develop that building obviously with the permission of the city or the state, the jurisdiction. In this case, it would be the city of Bowie. And then we would build that to be the need that is represented in the community. So a community land trust is usually controlled by a nonprofit, led by a board, staff, and community members. The goal is to balance the interests of the residents and the broader community, along with the public interest to promote wealth building, retention of public resources, and solution for community needs. In our business sector, we cover a number of different issues like accounting, acquiring the appropriate legal counsel for those individuals, business development, et cetera. And wherever we don't have the resources, we would connect them to those resources as well. And so urban centricity, kind of going back to that idea of centrality, is designed to connect our community at large. In terms of finance, our mission is to provide financial services and loan opportunities to enable our individual and business community to prosper financially. And of course, we would be our organizational wide strategies as well. And in terms of the national industry standards, we are committed to complying with these national industry standards, which basically just provide, just like any other compliance, a certain list of requirements that we should comply with in order to be recognized by these standards. This is important because, it makes us more reputable in our work. It allows us to offer the best of the best to our clients. And so we're committed to the standard. We're committed to the highest level of professionalism. And you see that a number of the companies that we are also privately affiliated with and even public, some of our government affiliates are also on this list and the advisory council. So by adopting these standards, like I mentioned earlier, we create consistency, we gain the public trust, we build recognition, we elevate the industry's reputation for quality and service delivery, which is so, so important. It's important for Bowie's residents to get the best of the best and to have access to consistent help. So that they're not out there wondering, is my bank going to call me back? Am I going to get the services that I need? No, they'll be able to get a loan and they'll be able to have the counseling that they need from reputable sources. So another aspect that we've thought of are benefits. We think that it would be great for the city of Bowie to offer urban centricity as an employer benefit program. Essentially, this would work like any other benefit program where the employee would have access to the materials and the services, the resources, the classes, the counseling that urban centricity provides to ensure that that person has a clear pathway to both affordable housing and even to home ownership and building their business. So we're asking you to partner with us. We are asking you to make services available to Bowie residents by sponsoring or subsidizing service for your residents. We're asking you to make services available as an employee benefit for Bowie City employees. And we are also asking that we be deemed a community land trust so that we can build and develop affordable housing that will remain affordable housing in the city of Bowie, and to just serve those individuals who would benefit from that. Thank you, and I will turn the floor back over to John, who will be taking questions.
Thank you. John?
Yes.
There you go. At this time, I'd like to thank you for the presentation. I'd like to ask the council members if they have any questions at this time. Council Member Harrison?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. My question really is, because your presentation was pretty broad, I wanted to find out, like, how do you see yourself specifically helping the residents of Bowie, and what statistics have you gathered on our city, on who might need your services, as far as veterans or businesses? You know, what can you specifically tell me and our residents what you have, garnered as far as specifics on the city of Bowie?
That's a very good question. As you very well know, because of the pandemic, the statistics that have been harnessed, because there isn't any real statistics in regards to the city of Bowie specifically, but I can speak to Prince George's County as a whole. Prince George's County currently has the largest population of veterans within this region, housed right here in the county. How many of them are in Bowie, I do not know as of yet. We are seeking that out in regards to that specifically. But we are targeting and respecting what statistically is happening across the country and preparing ourselves for what HUD has established as the need in regards to the pandemic, and the number of individuals have become unemployed because of the pandemic, and preparing for that population. And we look at it from the standpoint of somewhere between 15 to as many as 25% of our population that are going to need some level of service, some level of counseling, specifically in the loss mitigation and foreclosure prevention area because of the pandemic. And that right now is the best numbers that we're having, and we're tracing that as best as we can on a daily basis.
Okay, because I know, unfortunately, we have some of the highest unemployment rates in the state right now. But I didn't know, I'm not sure what Bowie's numbers look like specifically.
I don't, at this particular point in time, I do not have that information specifically. We are, actively going to the state. We're speaking with, the state of Maryland's Community Home and Development Agency, so that we can assess that. We're speaking with the county's office to try and isolate that information, as well as with the housing authority. But unfortunately, because of the pandemic, it's changing every day. We know that the employment rates are increasing almost daily. But I don't have an accurate number for you at this particular point in time.
Okay. And my last question is, what other municipalities in Prince George's County have you worked with, and what have your successes been?
Right now, we've not worked with any other municipalities within the county. We have newly formed with our affiliation with NID and our national council. We've done some things across the country or in other urban cities. And we've decided that we wanted to, change our approach from being an individual-based approach to working specifically with municipalities to get the word out and to provide a greater resource for the county.
Okay, well, I think you all are offering an awesome program. So thank you very much for the information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council members with any questions at this time?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just a really quick comment if I can.
Yes, please go right ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you so much. Well, I wanted to thank you guys because I know you guys weren't able to, we weren't able to hear you guys at our last meeting, but I'm really impressed with what you guys are trying to do, not just for our community, but communities across Prince George's County, the state of Maryland. And as you guys know, across the country, this is a real big issue that folks are facing. And so look forward to seeing you guys in some high places in the near future, tackling some real problems. When it pertains to the city of Bowie, though, have you guys had a chance to talk to Mr. Buggs and our city staff?
We've reached out to Jesse, and we've not had the opportunity of sitting down with him personally or directly in regards to this. I have had over the last year, possibly more, as we were developing certain things. I've had discussions with him in regards to the need. So we do believe that we are fulfilling a need. How we establish that need in our partnership with the city to roll it out at a larger scale, this was the first step for that. Getting wholesale approval from the council that allows for us to engage and partner, so that this is not a service that is just being offered by us at Urban Centricity, but a collaborative between Urban Centricity and the city, so that we are making sure that we're tackling all of the needs as best as we possibly can, versus just touching on some of the needs. Right.
Yep. And I think the next step, well, I'm glad that you guys came to us. I do definitely think the next step for you guys is to talk to Mr. Buggs, as he is the foremost expert on housing policy, not just here in the city of Bowie, but across the state as well. So I would recommend that you guys take a chance to talk to him at some point.
Great.
And again, thank you guys again. I think what you guys are doing is pretty amazing here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any other questions or comments from any of the other council members?
Yeah, quick question or quick comment as well.
Yes,
if I would just like to say thanks for coming in. Appreciate your sharing with us the work that you guys are doing. But I would reiterate, I think, what the Mayor Pro Tem just commented on, which I think would be great if you could touch base with Jesse and see how our needs align and what insights he could provide for you. I'm not sure that we have quite the same level of need that the rest of the region has. We've been very fortunate in terms of the resiliency of the economy in our little corner of the world, if you will. But I know it's a growing problem, and it's something that certainly needs some attention. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments, anyone?
I just have a comment. Don, I would love to connect with you and your organization. I think the work that you're doing is phenomenal. And Simone, thank you so much for presenting. By the way, love your glasses. I really do think the work that you are doing is phenomenal. So I think finding ways and how we can amplify that, and like Councilwoman Harris said, kind of bridge that connection with our residents to really make sure that they can fully take access of it, because I think now is the time. My first question is, have you connected with the Chamber of Commerce in our city? Have you connected with them?
Yes, with Bowie, okay. Yes. I have had conversations with them, and thus far they're on board. And Councilman Gardner has been, very helpful with helping us establish that communication and that dialogue on an ongoing basis, especially for the services that we have planned for the business community. And yes, so we have done that.
And just a last question for you, and then I'll make one comment, Mr. Mayor. I promise I'm almost done. Is the intent that the intent is that this would be a program that would be accessible for residents, right? That's the intent.
That is correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I didn't mishear and it wasn't just for staff, even though that would be great too. I think it kind of goes into this broader theme of like upskilling and workforce development and really just educating the public and giving resources and access. I think it would be fantastic to connect with Jesse, and then also to see if we could have a conversation, because workforce development is something that, along with Councilman Gardner, is really passionate about. I'm passionate about as well, in terms of upskilling our community, because I think the time is now, especially with everything that's happened with COVID. So I would love to connect with you further to just learn more and educate myself more on the work that you're doing out here in the community, and see how and what ways we could amplify those efforts. Thank you.
We welcome that. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, then I will just say thank you so very much. This was actually quite informative.
Thank you.
I think our residents were probably very fortunate to go through the presentation. It was quite a lot of information to take in at one time, so we will need to do it. And again, I think on behalf of the entire council, but also the staff, but also the city residents as well, thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for taking the time to come here this evening and to share with us. So thank you very much, and we look forward to talking with you in the future.
Thank you, sir.
Great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving along with the agenda. We will now be going to the update on environmental initiatives. The chair will provide us the next steps for a green buoy.
All right, let's see if we can get this technology to work for us. Can you hear me? That's one. Okay, can you see me? That's two. Okay, looks like we may be in business. Mr. Mayor, council members, I appreciate the opportunity to come forward and talk to you about the Environmental Advisory Council, or EAC's approach to what the city should be doing next. I have a short presentation. I'm going to keep it under 10 minutes, even if you ask 10 questions each. So that's as close to a promise as I can get. So my intent this evening is to provide the council with the EAC's best advice on the next steps toward environmentally sustainable future for the city of Bowie. Let me see if I can manage a screen share here. And blow it up. Everybody see a big screen there? Okay, does anybody see a big screen there? It looks like the cover of the Climate Action Plan.
Right, you see the screen with the slides on the side. So
sounds great. Screen with the slides on the side.
Right.
No, actually, that doesn't sound all that great.
Screen.
Yeah, hold on just a moment. I went to full screen, but interesting. Well, from my point of view, I think I can do something. Hold on just a moment. Let's try this approach.
Okay.
I will do that. At least it got bigger, eh?
Technology can be a challenge at times.
Yeah, I'm a Zoom guy. This is Teams. I don't know what to tell you. Well, let me just blow on. In the past, we have referred to this presentation on an annual basis as the EAC's next 10 steps. Mayor Robinson told us more than once that the city couldn't focus on 10 things at the same time, even though we tried to put 10 issues and actions in order of our priority, but the list just appeared to be too formidable. And there was also some question about what the city needed to do and what the EAC intended to do. So we've changed the format to reflect the three most important actions that we feel the city should take. We're also aware of the financial strain that the past year has put on the city. So in addition to the top three priorities, we provided a short list of actions the city could take if resources were made available. And last, we have separately described what we believe the EAC's most important functions are, in essence, what the EAC is doing for the city. Our framework is the Climate Action Plan that you unanimously approved last July. I was really moved by the council's commitment at that meeting, which was quite evident when every member present tried to second the motion to approve it. I had never heard of a motion that was unanimously seconded before. In that resolution, now I've got to figure out how to make slides go by. In that resolution, highlighted in green here, you can see that the city resolved to reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the city footprint to half of the 2015 levels by 2030. That's pretty ambitious, but now we find that it is quite in step with the county, state, and the Metropolitan Council of Governments goals. We don't measure greenhouse gas ourselves in this footprint of the city. The county does that using the same methods as other Council of Governments members. They report every 3 years, and there is a 2-year lag in the report. We received this report for 2018 towards the end of last year, and as you can see from the graph, we were aimed well to hit our original 2015 target, but experienced an uptick since then. There were many causes, but increases in population, residential energy use per household, retail square footage, and energy use per retail square foot were the big issues. It's clear to us that the tall pole in the tent is residential and commercial sectors. The city is doing a great job with its own resources. For example, the solar farm, purchasing electric vehicles, installing public EV charging stations, and providing encouragement and incentives for sustainable practice by residents. But as I've said before, the city can only do so much with its own resources. Achieving our goal is going to require the efforts of 20,000 households and 60,000 residents, as well as the commercial sector. To get back on our timeline, the timeline that we've resolved to meet, these are the 3 most important priority actions we feel the city should take. One is to create a new city staff position or to promote climate action and sustainability within the planning department, using best practices in change management. This goes far beyond using available communication methods and includes meeting with groups where they are already engaged, such as homeowners associations, clubs, formal and informal organizations, even convening focus groups to discover their concerns for the environment and help educate citizens about how and why they can and should make a difference. Our second priority is aligning development and environmental goals. As discussed at the last council meeting, the EAC and the Advisory Planning Board have agreed to exchange liaisons, and Mr. Meinert will ensure that we are apprised of development proposals and are able to raise any environmental concerns through the board. It will be up to the council to decide if a given proposal considers the health of the natural and man-made environment and whether the actions will improve, maintain, or degrade elements of the natural environment. Our third priority is for the city is to promote a sustainable master plan. City staff and council must be advocates, ensuring that the new Bowie-Mitchellville and vicinity master plan under development by Prince George's County Planning Department protects our natural environment. Sip of water with one hand. If and when resources might become available, we advise the city to the degree they can, electrify transportation, particularly by restructuring fleet procurement policies to use life cycle costs in the planning process for planning replacements for the fleet. Reducing solid waste, examine the potential use of incentives to influence residents' behavior, expand the curbside food scrap collection and composting programs citywide, and promoting citizen interaction with nature by providing a natural exploration and education area for children and studying the costs, benefits, and intangible value of constructing a nature center in the city. We previously mentioned that the space within the racetrack site adjacent to the area set aside for the water would be an ideal situation because of the natural environment there. So how can what will the EAC do for the city? Our goal is to improve communication and citizen engagement. As you can see, we've only mentioned that about 25 times in the past few times we've talked to the council. First, as required by the Climate Action Plan, we have identified a team, and members are already on a mission to identify best practices in fostering citizen engagement, environmental actions, and educating and motivating residents to use sustainable practices. I don't have a date yet since the team is still organizing its work, but we expect to provide the council with a detailed plan probably by late spring. We will continue to support the council and staff's sustainability team in implementing climate actions and measuring progress. We will join you in advocating for a Bowie, Mitchellville, and vicinity master plan at every opportunity we have, and that will allow for sustainable growth and development while minimizing increases in greenhouse gas emissions. Of course, we will continue to review and comment on development proposals to ensure that the city survives and thrives as a great place to live, work, and play. We feel that our greatest strength as a committee is to keep our eyes and ears open to possibilities. We will strive to identify and research legislation that addresses our environmental priorities and to research broad issues for actions that can be addressed in the municipal level, such as discouraging the proliferation of single-use plastics. On that issue, I will be more than happy to take, this goes back to the high three there, I'll be more than happy to take any questions you might have.
Well, at this time, first I'd like to thank you so very much. We were on a discussion a little earlier, and we were talking about how engaged the EAC is in supporting the city and how proactive you are. So we do want to thank you so very much for all that you're doing and all that you have been doing in the past. So having said that, and thanking you for being here this evening, are there any questions or comments from any of the council members at this time?
Am I getting off that easy again?
I think you're letting you off really easy this evening.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Councilwoman Harrison. Go ahead.
But it's an easy question, Steve. Thanks so much for your report. It was great, as always. We appreciate everything the EAC does. My question is, since, you know, we won't own that racetrack land until 2023.
Right.
And I wondered if you had any other ideas about where that nature center could go in Bowie.
There are members of the committee have 2 or 3 different ideas about that. I'd rather bring that to you separately. I know there's some effort in the Old Town Bowie area to do something like that, just because the nature allows it. So, but let me get back to you with a concrete answer to that.
Okay, no problem. And I guess that'll be included in the information you're going to provide to us in the spring.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, well, doubtless before then, but yeah, okay.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much. Any other questions or comments from any of the other council members at this time?
Mr. Mayor, just if I may.
Yes,
just a quick thank you for all the hard work that the organization does. I very much appreciate it. The community benefits tremendously from your good efforts, and as usual, nice job. Thank you.
Thank you for being a good committee liaison.
Any other comments? Steve, again, thank you so very much for what you and the EAC continue to do and what you have done, as I said, and we look forward to hearing from you again in the future. And thank you for being with us this evening.
You may be sure you will, sir.
And by the way, you did great on time.
Aha.
Thank you, Steve. All right, moving along. We will now hear from our police chief, report on the police department. I see Deputy Chief Preston.
I'm in chambers, sir.
The chief of police is in chambers, sir.
Oh, there you go. You know what? I always miss you, Chief, because you're in there. So Thank you so very much for joining us this evening, and please go right ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm going to try to follow Steve's example and be fairly efficient. First thing I want to do is recognize just what kind of 2020 we had as an overview. The men and women downstairs, civilian dispatchers and officers alike, worked through some very hard conditions, and I am very proud to say that the residents experienced 0 drops in service during this COVID pandemic. And I couldn't say enough about how proud I am of the work that everyone did and the flexibility and ingenuity they showed while navigating the pandemic. So definitely kudos to them. I realize that 2021 so far is just the same sandwich on different bread, but we've had some challenges and continue to have some challenges. We especially began rough with the Capitol siege, and again, my officers stepped up. We called them in, our civil defense unit, civil defense unit. We called them in the afternoon of the event. They were on standby. They were all within an hour. They were suited up, ready to go, equipment loaded, ready to respond if needed. The next day, they did go down and did standby in the Senate building. So I say this to reference, 2006, 2007, we had 7 people. And now we're here in 2021, and we've taken our place in the larger world of law enforcement in the area. And in many ways, we're helping to lead that larger world. So again, I can't be more proud of the folks downstairs. So along those lines, 2021 has started out a little active. I will say in the last, so far in 2021, we're midway through February, and we've recovered 12 guns off the streets. That's 12 guns that were recovered by active patrol responding to calls, not only calls for service, but complaints from the community. So I say that to say this. We encourage our residents to call in with issues. We encourage them to report things. We do follow up, and we do take those calls and those complaints seriously. And through that proactive patrol, through that proactive policing, 12 guns are off the streets of the city of Bowie in a month and a half. So we really do appreciate the efforts of those officers. We appreciate the information that we receive from the citizens. And again, it shows just how much of a partnership this is between our officers and the community. So I'm going to continue with just some high level things on the packet that we gave you. Our camera rebate program is up and running. We've done some more publicity on it. We're about a quarter of the way through the funds. So please, if you're within the sound of my voice, take advantage of our $50 rebate for our cameras. Doesn't have to be a certain brand, just has to be on the outside, and you have to provide certain proof on the website that you did purchase it, and it is a house within the city, and it is mounted within that house in the city. So if we look at our statistics, you'll notice we had a very good year as far as thefts go. Overall thefts are down by 39%. You can see the individual categories. We did have a bump in commercial burglaries, and that was attributed to a county-wide group that was just going down the 301 corridor and just hitting things on a regular basis. But overall, our theft numbers look outstanding. You'll see that our moving violations dropped tremendously because of the pandemic. Just nobody really out. But the inverse of that is we saw an increase in our speed camera tickets because nobody was out. There was no traffic. People tend to fly through those areas. Moving on to the criminal investigations section for 2020. If you look at the closure rates for total assigned cases, and these are cases that have a solvability factor to them, we have a closure rate of 45%, which is outstanding. We had a couple high visibility things, such as the carjacking, hit and run that they solved. And again, it's part of the detectives reaching out, being part of networks, sharing information with other departments, and following up on leads. A couple of these, we did get leads. We put out lookouts, and we got information from residents and people in the community regarding that. Moving down to the community services team, it's a little tougher from them under pandemic conditions because a lot of things were canceled. A lot of things that we usually thrive on are our meetings and our community interactions. So we've had to redirect some things. One thing that I was very happy that we were able to pull off, and I will give complete credit to Sergeant Gibson and his team that we pulled it off very well, was our Shop with a Cop on December 13th. We were unable to, of course, go physically shopping with the kids, but they did an outstanding job of providing an experience for the people in need and especially for those kids in need. And again, complete kudos to that team because they did it without a hitch. And our great partner at R Motors over at Toyota Bowie, of course, is always there for us to help us in the community. You'll see some of the goals for 2021 for the community services team. You go to page 10, you'll see our traffic safety officer unit. It's funny we call him a unit, but he's really one guy. He just does the work of a unit. We, again, track all our complaints. We talk about our citizens. We talk about our feedback from the community. They have an issue. They want us to look at speeding. They look at some traffic. We keep track of the times that we spend there. We keep track of exactly what happened as far as the enforcement, because often it is a very true problem, and sometimes it's a perception problem. So we want to make sure that we address everything, that we keep track of what we do to address those issues. Again, at the page 13, you'll see some of our grant-funded traffic enforcement patrols. And page 14, you'll see our training overview. One thing that does not care about COVID is training. We continue to have to operate our in-service. We continue to have to maintain our training and, when possible, advance our training under these challenging conditions. And the training staff under Sergeant Wall has done an outstanding job of doing just that. With that, I will stop and take questions and concerns from the council.
Well, first and foremost, Chief, I'd like to thank you and the entire department for your outstanding service to our community. I would like to make a comment before I go to the other council members and then come back, is that as you talked about taking those 12 guns off the street, I think one of the things that speaks highly of our police department, of you and Deputy Chief and all of the men and women in the Bowie Police Department, is that people are comfortable to call you. And what I mean by that is there are certain areas where people are hesitant to call the police, not because they don't want to report a crime, but because they're afraid of what the interaction between the person they're calling and they're recommending will be with the police department. And I think you do an outstanding job as a department of how you work with our citizens and those in our community, that people feel safe in calling you and letting you know. And we need to continue to encourage that. And so, having said that, I really want to thank you for all you've done. Those numbers, when you talk about the drops last year in those areas, they were quite significant. But again, that's just kudos to you and to all the men and women on the department. And with that, let me just stop and ask if any council members have any questions or comments at this time.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to piggyback. You summarized it so very well. I just want to thank Chief Neske and Deputy Chief Preston and all the officers and men and women of the Bowie Police Department. We just appreciate you so much, and thank you so much for being the example for other police departments in the state to follow. So just thank you so much for all your great work.
Okay. Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other comments or questions at this time from any of the other council members? Chief, it looks like they're trying to let you guys off easy. I guess
Mr.
that's
Mayor.
what happens when you're doing a great job.
Well, I appreciate it. And one last thing that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, I need to give a special thank you to my command staff and specifically Deputy Chief Preston. I am currently the president of the Maryland Chiefs, and the legislative session has pulled me away quite a bit and taken a lot of my time up, and I would not be able to take that time without having a strong command staff behind me, especially Deputy Chief Preston, to fill in and backfill and make sure that the ship remains running smoothly.
Chief, with all due respect, we didn't even know that you were missing. No, I'm just kidding. No, and I think you're absolutely right. You have a great staff, command staff, and a great department. And I, again, say that you're the model for people to want to replicate, not only in our immediate area, but nationwide. So again, thank you so much.
Thanks, sir.
If there are no other questions or comments, we'll move on to the next agenda item. We will now go to the city manager and the mid-year budget report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and City Council and residents out there in Bowie. Before I start, I'm going to give a brief high points of the mid-year report that you all have. But before I get to that, I'd like to say something about our police department. This is my fourth city where I've worked with the police department. I had the command of a police department. And one of the things that sets Bowie's police department apart, aside from the fact that they're CALEA certified, which is something he forgot to mention, that's a significant event, very significant, is that in my 4.5 years that I've been here, what I noted was that Chief Nesky and Chief Preston and command staff were exceptionally proficient at community relations and community policing, is that they have the best connection with the residents that I've seen in my 22 years of being a city manager. I've never seen a police department that is so connected to the people that they serve. And I think that's why nobody has a problem calling them. And that's a testament to Chief Nesky here. Now, let's get back to the exciting mid-year review. You all, I refer you to the packet that was sent out, and I'll touch on a few things for less than 10 minutes, and then you can ask. I have all the relevant staff members standing by in case somebody has a specific question about something in the mid-year report. Of course, every year you all assign, when you all approve the budget, you assign objectives to us that we are required to accomplish. The primary purpose of local government, either city or county first level government, is to deliver services to the residents, the services that they demand and of course deserve. And there is a cover letter that I wrote to you all dated February 11th. I won't read that, but I will highlight a few things. If you look down in the third from the bottom and start there, city staff transitioned to telework for most operations, and the Public Works Department, Parks and Grounds continue to maintain vital services during the pandemic. And as Chief Nesky mentioned, the pandemic changed everything for us, obviously. We have the city's financial position is strong as real estate values continue to recover and new development projects come online. The city's economic outlook remains stable. However, an increase in real property tax rates and reduction in expenditures are necessary in the future to correct the gap that's widening between our general fund revenues and expenditures. So, I like for us to move forward to page 9 in that book and talk about emergency management. The emergency management department of the city has been under exceptional pressure since March of last year because of COVID-19 and the emergency operations associated with that. One of the things they did, if you look at page 9, is to develop the continuity of operations for all departments to ensure essential city functions are maintained during disasters and emergencies. And as you can see, that plan has been completed. And not only was it completed, but we effectively implemented it since March of this year. So not that we wanted to, but COVID-19 compelled us to do that. And one point I'd like to note for those who understand or have any comprehension of emergency management, our Emergency Operations Center has been operational either in person or virtual for nearly a year as we manage this emergency situation, and with the intent, of course, to continue to deliver quality service. If I could move over to page 14, and that would be the information technology component division. Now, there are several objectives that they've accomplished, and one, getting our strategic plan done, and other things, and they accomplished, or either on course to accomplish all of those. But what they did most significantly in April of this year, acquiring large numbers of laptops, establishing VPNs for people who are working on their own computers. We were working, our IT department was getting us programmed for Teams 2 months before the coronavirus hit. And then, of course, using Zoom to communicate and be efficient as our people were compelled to work from home in April through June when we were directed to shut down the city. I'd like to note that, of all our departments, of course we need them and love them all. However, the most, our information technology is essential to the delivery of every department. And I like to state that we didn't miss a beat between March and now with our ability to deliver service. And one of the primary reasons is that our IT department was able to transition. Earlier we talked about using Zoom and all that sort of thing. One of the things we ought to know that in our IT department, if somebody works 3 or 4 hours a night on a Zoom, a necessary communications meeting, well, they already worked 8 hours because the same people who are going to be managing our IT during the day are going to be working at night. And that's one of the things, of course, that we have to manage. But I wanted to make that point, put that point across. Also, I'd like to go to page 16 and look at the operating department objectives for the finance department. During COVID-19, our finance department, along with the emergency management department, and all our departments did a really credible job of keeping up with our expenditures associated with COVID-19. And as a result, we were able to get that $1.9 million in reimbursement through the CARES Act, which is essential to us. But I'd like to note that that the annual budget process, which is number one, the second objective there, and number one there, that maintain the city certificate of achievement for financial reporting and distinguished budget award. Our finance department has won that award over and over again, and this year too. And of course, we just completed the budget review, and believe it or not, all of our, and this is another testament to how finance was working with IT, all of our budget review sessions were virtual. And that was a significant accomplishment because, as you know from our past years, all of our budget review meetings would be in 181 face-to-face, but we couldn't do that. But we were able to get through it as efficiently as we could otherwise. And so we may have learned something as it relates to that. Also, I'd like to go to page 18, which is building maintenance, which falls under community services. If you look at page 18, the second objective there is to complete the City Hall HVAC Phase 3 engineering study for RTU 1. That's rooftop unit 1. That is one of our major HVAC operations on our roof. And modifications and enhanced zone controls, and they had to complete that by November of 2020. And you see from the status there, the results of that study indicated that there was no action needed. Well, that sounds really something we said really quickly, but let me give you an idea of how we've improved over the last 4.5 years. When I got here in 16, you know, once or twice a week, we'd come to work and the air was stale and the heating systems was off because we didn't have the expertise we needed to maintain these complicated HVAC systems that existed. But over the years, we acquired 3 competent, outstanding employees. Ray Drapeau, who's took over our building maintenance, John, who's our supervisor, Patrick is an HVAC person that you all approved 2 years ago. And as a result of those acquisitions and the fact that you gave us the authority to have an HVAC person on hand who is technically competent and proficient, it's to the point we thoroughly understand our systems now. We know how to help maintain them ourselves and not be taken advantage of by contractors simply because we have no expertise. So we acquired expertise, and now there are no surprises with the rooftop unit 1 or any of those other systems that could negatively affect our ability to utilize the building, which I'm sure Chief Nets can attest to what we were going through 3 years ago. But you get the right people, like Mr. Collins said, you get the right guys on the bus in the right seats, and we were able to do that, and especially when you all allowed us to get a new HVAC person. I'd like to jump to page 36, which is in the Public Works Department, in particular the Solid Waste Division. They have one objective, which is to develop a regular schedule for recurring recycling events and shredding, paper shredding, and as a matter of fact, the electronic recycling, those things are all scheduled to occur. But it's more than that. During the shutdown between April and June, there were three functions that just had to keep going. Of course, the police department had to keep going, and we had to pick up the trash and recycle it. And it should be noted that there were times when in Baltimore and other places where 2/3 of their employees didn't come to work, and COVID-19 decimated their organization. Well, that didn't happen here because of the way we managed this situation. So we're talking about 220 days of seamless solid waste recycling service while in a pandemic. And we went through some situations where people had to quarantine, and even one time I think George was out on a recycling truck himself because, you know, these people believe in making it happen. So I just wanted to point that out, that's an essential service, and we didn't miss a beat. Also, if you look at page 37 and you look at the Street Maintenance Division, one of the goals that they are 50% complete on, and I'm pretty sure they'll be done with in a few months, is replacement of street name signs in the fiscal year. Street name signs are replaced. Things like street signs, stop signs, all those things are essential to the quality of life in the neighborhoods in Leavitt, Northridge, and all over the town. But this, once again, our department, our Public Works Department, continue to deliver that essential service, just like managing the police and solid waste and our rangers too. Finally, I'd like to turn to page 41 and point out that's one of the CIP projects. I only want to highlight one of them, and that would be the street resurfacing project. Because when I got into city management 22 years ago, my former city manager, who was my coach, Dick Conte, told me, he said, look, you got to do 3 things. You got to pick up the trash, you got to have the cops out, and you simply must pave the roads. Or as a local government, you haven't done your job. And I want to point out here that in the pandemic, all the issues that are going on we have a $1.7 million paving project that's 60% complete. And of course, once it warms up, we'll be able to complete that by the end of the year without a problem. And this is once again, this is a seamless service that our residents simply must have, that our people have been able to deliver without an issue while under duress. Mr. Mayor, that's all I have to. I'd like to highlight, as I mentioned earlier, all of the senior staff persons are on the call if anybody has any specific questions about any objectives that are listed in our mid-year review. Thank you.
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to say, City Manager, thank you very much for the presentation. And I think I speak for the council and the residents when I say what a great job the city has done through this challenging pandemic. So I do want to say thank you there. I have one small, I have several, but there's one I really wanted to just ask in general about. And that was with the water distribution system interconnections. And I know you said there were two, Old Chapel Road and London Lane, that we were still trying to work out an agreement with WSSC. Was there any particular reason why those two were, or it's just a matter of timing?
Hi, this is George Stefanos, Public Works Director. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes, I can.
Okay, so that we have the four interconnects. That those are places where our water system touches the WSSC system. They're for emergency use only. Two of them, when they were built, the city and WSSC worked out meticulous agreements on how the connections would be opened. And two of them, these were built quite a long time ago, were not. And one of the reasons that we had this objective to test them was to make sure that we had good processes in place. And so that's kind of what we have discovered. We need to improve the process so that we have a consistent, because it's going to be an emergency when we need to open them, so we don't want to be fumbling.
Okay, and that answered that, because I was curious why those two and not the other, but that explains it. At this time, I will open it up to any council members who have any questions at this time or comments.
Mr. Mayor,
I think
Mr. Mayor, just a couple quick comments, if I may.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman.
First of all, I'd like to start off by thanking you and the entire staff. As I look through the mid-year budget document, it really highlights the accomplishments that the city's been able to achieve in what are best described as trying times as you're trying to get through this halfway mark. I don't think anybody expected it to last this long, and it's commendable. When you start looking at what COVID has done and how it's affected the entire organization, whether it's at the ice arena, the senior center, where we've turned kind of the inward, where the seniors were coming to our senior center. Now we're reaching out to them, making proactive outward effort to support our senior community, where before it was a environment where people came in. Tremendous improvements there and responding. The Playhouse, even recognizing that we just don't have any troops that are going to be playing up there, but it's still we're progressing on the improvements there. The refuse, the solid waste, I get compliments all the time from our constituents, and I want to thank you on their behalf for the good work that group has done. It's truly remarkable given the level of effort it takes to drive those trucks around and to staff them and to ensure that those deadlines are met. So thank you. Public Works, the police department, we talked a little bit earlier, tremendous effort there as well. Road paving continues, the snow removal, such as the circumstances look like we may have yet another opportunity for that coming upon us. Couple of things that are really truly commendable. I already talked about the one with the solid waste and whatnot, but the communication efforts. Una, I know, has been lead on a lot of things, but this organization has done a tremendous job providing insights to the community in the form of newsletters, emails, IT updates on the web, for everything that's been related to COVID. Truly amazing, very responsive, and very much appreciated by the community. So that's a significant achievement there, and I know it's been a tremendous burden on the IT department as they've really jumped through hoops. So thank you all very much for that. A couple things I want to follow up and ask questions on. And the first one I'm going to start off with, and unfortunately I'm not well prepared, so I'll just lay out a marker on it. I had a constituent that called me some time ago, and we spoke for a little while, and I'll have to go back and look at my notes. There was some wildlife in the backyard, and I think it was a deer or something along those lines. Something had been injured, and the constituent felt that the folks in the animal control may not have had all of the necessary tools at their disposal to help with the situation. They were very supportive and very appreciative of the effort that was provided, and were very supportive of our team. But they thought they might need some additional. I'll have to get some more, and I'll be in touch with you about that. Code compliance, I'm glad to see that the review is underway for potential changes, but I want to make sure that that stays front of mind as well, and what we can do for tightening up our code requirements for particularly housing and the like. And I'm glad to see that we have the security review that's come in, and perhaps we can talk about that at some point in the future. Other than that, also thanks for the electrification. It's good to see that moving forward with 3 vehicles. That's good progress there as well. So thank you very much, and we'll look forward to seeing continued progress for the rest of the year, and hopefully under better circumstances. Again, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, Councilman. Any other council members with any comments or questions at this time?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman, go right ahead.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to jump in to say a tremendous word of thanks to everyone at City Hall and everyone working on behalf of the city. I can't name all 400 city employees right now because we'll be here all night. But just a huge thank you to Al, Dan, all of our department heads who are on. You guys have done a tremendous job through what has been an incredibly challenging year for everyone. Municipal government is one of those things that unfortunately is usually working at its best when no one notices it, which can unfortunately often make the job feel thankless. But I know that many of our residents have been in touch and hopefully continue to express their support for the many frontline workers we employ and the many staff that we have operating behind the scenes to keep operations moving smoothly through this difficult period. And so I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone. Your work does not go unappreciated by the City Council. You make us look good every single day. And many of you, so many of you have gone above and beyond in this really challenging time. And we're very, very grateful. So keep up the good work, and thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Harrison?
Yes, I just wanted to echo the sentiments of my colleagues and thank you to city staff, our city manager, our deputy city manager. We just appreciate you all so very much. And as I said, with the police department, you all set the example across the state. And I hear all the time what great work the city of Bowie does. And we owe all of our thanks to you all. So thank you very much. And our residents truly appreciate you as well.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other council
Mayor?
members? Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to echo all the sentiments of my colleagues. I think they've said it beautifully. So thank you to staff.
Okay. Any other comments? I would like to say, again, I said it already, really appreciative of all that you've done and all. I would like to say thank you to all of the departments and all. It really is important, and I think it's really great and very commendable that we have that continuity of operations plan in place, and that you've already put it in, and that the city attorney is now reviewing it and all. But anyway, I think that's a great step forward for the city, and I want to commend you all, because I know that is not an easy task, and it probably was not an easy task. So thank you so very much with that. There's a couple of small things, but nothing I really need to hold us up to ask about at this time, other than to simply say thank you again. City manager, staff, other departments, all the personnel throughout the city, thank you so very much for all you do, and we appreciate you. Having said that, if no other comments at this point, we will move on with the agenda. And thank you again, City Manager.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you.
Okay. We will now go to Resolution R821, addressing smart technology solutions and the digital divide. I believe we have someone from the IT committee on the line. Joanne?
Hi, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members and staff. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to bring in front of you and support Resolution 8-21 for the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland, addressing the smart technology solutions and the digital divide. I want to say thank you to Councilmember Roxy for really working with us on presenting this resolution and bringing it before you. I don't know if everyone had an opportunity to read the resolution. Roxy, would you like to go ahead and read the resolution?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Sorry, let me just switch screens. Okay.
That's a good committee person to be able to direct the council on what they need to do. Go right ahead. I'm sorry, I couldn't. I'm just kidding.
Mr. Mayor, don't I my committee, my liaisonship position, okay? Okay, so we're talking about Resolution R-8-21, and I guess I can read the resolution out, and then I'll give some brief context. I'll read it out for the city, for any residents who are watching that haven't had an opportunity to look at it. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland, addressing smart technology solutions and the digital divide. Whereas interaction between human and computers has greatly increased as technology becomes increasingly prevalent in our world. And whereas the ability to access computers and the internet has become increasingly important in order to participate in the economic, political, and social aspects of the United States and the world. And whereas this change has affected the quality of life for many, however, not everyone has access to this technology. And whereas the City of Bowie has been making significant steps towards becoming a fully smart city over the last few years. And whereas the gap between people of means who have access to technology and the internet and those who do not, known as the digital divide, continues to grow at alarming rates. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland, that the city will adopt policies and take steps to assure that all city development, both residential and commercial, including both for-profit and non-profit entities and schools, businesses, and individuals who do business with the city, commit to incorporate smart technology solutions and practices for city residents and taxpayers aimed at reducing the digital divide. And be it further resolved by the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland, that implementation of smart solutions and services in the city shall promote low-cost, stable, and secure infrastructure construction and easements in developed properties, complement the city's environmental goals, as well as sustaining technologies that are implemented, accessibility to inclusive technology by design for all residents and tenants in developed properties, access to broadband telecommunication from competitive sources at competitive rates for all residents and tenants in developed properties. Lastly, the elimination of the digital divide, And that's the resolution. So to give a little bit of context on in terms of our goal, and then I'll pass it back over to Joanne because I know she has a lot of fabulous points that she's going to make tonight, because she's just amazing. A lot of us have been talking about the increase in technology and the infrastructure, and in the city, we've talked about this reoccurring theme of infrastructure and making sure that there's sustainability around the infrastructure that we are implementing, and also within the people that we are also doing business with. With this resolution, what we're aiming for is we're aiming to make sure that the city, since we have made significant steps towards becoming and also sustaining being a smart city. Thank you, Todd, and our director of IT. He's done a great job working with the committee on doing that and making sure that the city continues to move in that direction. We would like to take it a step further and now make sure that with the city, also with those who are doing business in the city and coming in the city of Bowie, that we have this infrastructure where we are implementing low cost, stable, secure infrastructure, that we are complementing environmental goals, because we all know that sustainability of the environment is not just about green space or green life. Some of that is about technology or our carbon footprint and how that plays a factor in how we're reaching these goals. A lot of this inclusive technology, we've heard about a lot of communities with disabilities, whether that's are vision impaired and different types of people that have different abilities. We want to make sure that the technologies that we have in our city are also inclusive. We also want to ensure that we're getting broadband telecommunication from competitive sources, and that also the people who are doing business within the city are doing the same thing. And of course, one of the biggest, which is the digital divide. I'm sure we've all heard about that this year, especially with COVID, that amplified things with our children and just, us losing our jobs and the need to work from home and have access to this broadband. We want to make sure that access to broadband telecommunication from competitive sources at competitive rate remains the priority. So that's just a brief overview of the goal with this resolution and us continuing to take steps towards our commitment to our residents of becoming and maintaining a smart city. Joanne, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you so much. That was an excellent summary. And I want to give you just a quick overview, a background history of how we got here. Back in 2019, the IT committee decided to look at this mission and initiative of what we consider was smart cities, or smart technology, smart solutions, and smart services. And so part of our process included meeting with key stakeholders and introducing them to what our definition of a smart city, our vision of a smart city, and obtaining their information and feedback based on their experience or either living in Bowie, operating in Bowie, or even when they were campaigning and meeting with their constituents and information that they had feedback to them. So we met with every council member, we met with different departments within the city of Bowie, and we even met with Seat Pleasant, or the city of Seat Pleasant. As you may know or may not know, Seat Pleasant is considered one of the outstanding, innovative cities who have integrated smart technologies into their overall operations in order to help with either public service, security, and their senior citizens. So we gathered all this information and we looked at what would be like some of our key elements in there. And we said one of our objectives was to provide a core infrastructure that fosters a continuously improving the decent quality of life to the citizens, a clean, sustainable environment, and application of smart solutions. Our mission really was to drive economic growth and improve the quality of life by enabling local area development and harnessing technology that leads to smart outcomes. The vision that we had was for the city of Bowie to become a smarter city. We believe the city of Bowie is smart already, but by adopting new technologies and technologies that can help and easily collaborate to disseminate information among the businesses, the residents, and the city department. And I think we all know some of the benefits that we could yield from this, like improving efficiency, eliminate redundancy, remove silos of data, streamline services, processes, and procedures. And so although this is an iterative process, We started out with a key group of stakeholders, and that is expanding. We now know we need to meet with some of the committees with the City of Bowie to obtain their feedback also. One thing that the resolution is not doing, we're not enforcing or pushing any type of platform, any type of vendor, any specific technology, because we know that's going to be evolving as the, I'll call them the problems that are presented that could be addressed with technology. As we address those problems, what is the solution will differ depending on the problem. What the overall resolution seeks to achieve is just a commitment from the City of Bowie that whenever development is going on within the parameters of Bowie, that a standard component of the development would be evaluating, integrating, and hopefully implementing a smart solution, technology, or services that will eventually yield towards reducing or eliminating the digital divide. So, Mayor and council members, I hope that you will support and agree to adopt Resolution R-8-21.
Thank you so very much. I think you did an excellent job of explaining that. I would like to ask the council members at this time if they have any questions or comments. No questions, no comments.
One quick question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you. So I guess this question is directed either towards the chair of the IT committee or towards Councilmember Ndebumadu. So just so I'm clear, we would be adopting this resolution this evening, which will then initiate a process of policies being written as it relates to smart cities. Just wanted to be clear about that.
Correct.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Wonderful. Does our IT department, I think Mr. Peterson may be on, do they have any feedback that they wanted to give us tonight, or are they okay for now?
No, we've been working very closely with the committee, and I'm full support of what we've put together. So I have no further comments. And I think Joanne and Councilmember Ndebumadu did a really good job of putting this forward.
Delightful. I like it when everyone's on the same page. And since Mr. Peterson is on, I'll just heap some praise onto you for all your tremendous work with the IT department over this last year. I know it's been a really tough one. As the city manager indicated earlier, we don't play favorites, but obviously you guys have become an even more integral part of the day operations of the city. So thank you. Without you, we can't do any of this.
Thank you.
And think of all that city residents would lose if they could not hear us talking at these council meetings. It'd be so sad for everyone. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else? Any other comments or questions at this time?
No, I would like to make a comment. I appreciate the committee and Joanne. Thank you for, I know we had a conversation a couple of months ago, so I really appreciate you reaching out to probably all of us to get our input into your plan, and certainly for Councilmember Ndebumadu's effort for putting all this together, and of course Todd. So appreciate all the work that you've done, and I support the resolution. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions at this time? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt Resolution R-8-21.
I will second that.
It's been moved and properly second that we adopt the resolution. I'll ask for any further discussion at this time. Hearing none, I'll ask for the question. All in favor of the motion, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same favor? Hearing none, the motion carries. And thank you again to our IT department, to our IT committee, and to the councilwoman from our district who is supporting the IT and the digital divide. We do appreciate that. And it really is so important for our kids and for our community. So thank you so very much.
Okay.
Having said that, we are at the end of our agenda for this evening. Any questions at this time?
Nope, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second for us to adjourn. All in favor, respond with an aye.
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 Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. And good night, everyone. And please remember to stay safe.
Thank you.
Please. We're still in the middle of this pandemic. Hey, but thank you, everyone, city staff, for all your work. We appreciate all you do, and thank you.